Are you ready for the raw, unapologetic realities of reclaiming your life? Me too. So turn into the Takeover Unfiltered podcast hosted by, yours truly, Brianna Rooney, Millionaire Recruiter, and Taylor Bradley, the humble hustler. We're pulling back the curtain on our personal lives and sharing the ups, downs, and everything in between. From navigating relationships to juggling self-care routines, we are laying it all out on the table. You're welcome. We're all about taking control and making shit happen.
So expect raw, candid talk seasoned with some, of course, uncensored language. It's time to own your journey, embrace the chaos, and unleash your inner badass. So buckle up because we're about to take you on a wild ride to self-discovery and empowerment. But don't worry, we're still dishing on some valuable insights into the recruiting world. It's all about finding that balance between work and play, and we're here to show you how it's fucking done.
You ready to kick some ass and rewrite the rule book? Grab your favorite drink, cozy up, and join us for some real talk you are not going to want to miss. Hey, coming in hot once again, Takeover Unfiltered with the one, the only, Taylor Bradley. Whoop.
My energy is like a little less. I'm not getting that, right? Because we're recording in the afternoon, and I know our listeners, we've talked about it enough, we're both morning people. We usually record in the mornings. So by the afternoon, my wagon's dragging. I'm like, stay awake. But we get up so early. You get up really early, earlier than I do. So,
oh yeah, I'm a 4:50 riser, and I love it. And I started to. So what we're getting into is guilt. We're gonna stop the guilt. But I actually started feeling guilty the other day just because I didn't want to coach after 2 p.m. I'm like, sorry, I have 2 p.m. is my time to. I don't even know what I want to do. But the bottom line is I don't want to coach. I don't want to do work. Period.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to wait until 2 to eat because I'm a hungry girl. I need to eat at 11:30. I was trying to be like, can I push my lunch out to 2? Because 2's like that time for me. Like I could very easily take it out at 2.
Yeah. I always kind of eat on the go, if at all. I mean, we've been around each other in person. We just go and kind of power through lunch or just grab something. And I think it's because we know we do zonk out at 2, I have to power through when I still have the energy, and there's no way I'm going to go eat a burger or something like that. And then, at noon to go back and be productive. It just won't happen.
So motivation to have another child is nap time.
That is the fucking craziest thing I've ever heard. Motivation to have another child is because you want to take a nap. Because you're not going to sleep at all at night.
So when my kids were on a 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. nap schedule, my life couldn't have been better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was amazing.
And I wasn't always sleeping. Maybe I was watching Hallmark. Maybe I was reading. I don't know. But yeah, I think I need to just live in a different country where they take siestas.
Yeah.
And that's my solution.
You just need a nap? Are you a power napper? 30 minutes, 20 minutes? Oh,
yeah.
I'm not one of those.
Totally. Yeah, I can do it. Now, if I hit 46 minutes, it's over. I'm tired the rest of the day.
It's very precise of you. 46 minutes.
Because, you should see how I heat things up in the microwave. It was 48 seconds, 43 seconds. I'm a total psycho. Okay, let's get rid of this. Let's talk about the guilt.
The guilt of wanting to take a nap. No, guilt just in general. I know that you said the theme of this is stop the guilt. And I actually don't know if that's possible. I have a different perspective on that, I guess. I think it's just reframing your mind to how you respond to the guilt. Do you let it not be debilitating guilt where, Kate had a great point, our producer, identifying that it's guilt. I think it's just with anything that you're living with that anybody's living with. I think depression, for example, identifying that that's what it is, knowing that's what it is, figuring out a path forward. It doesn't mean that it's going to go away necessarily. And that's kind of my perspective on guilt. I think it's just kind of who you are, what you feel guilty about. And I think that, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything anybody could tell me that's stop being guilty and I'm just going to stop feeling guilty,
Yeah. I mean, there's no turn off switch.
Exactly.
But so I do like how you put it. It's just how do you live with it and keep moving forward? I definitely think identifying it is first and foremost, what am I guilty about? Why am I guilty? Why am I feeling these things? I talk a lot about my growth and success journal. So when I journal, I'm able to identify. So, I mean, even today's been kind of a day with me, which actually is why I put another episode on our tracker on what we're going to talk about. But it's what do you do at work when life gets in the way? That's kind of that's a different episode. But I start journaling. So like whenever I feel guilty, I try to identify, what am I feeling guilty about? Why am I doing this? And then honestly, like, what about it can I control?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big one. What about it can you control?
Yeah. And a lot of it you just like can't. So we were talking about earlier, so our listeners know I have a vision board. I'm really big into vision boards. And I even have it as like my screensaver and everything, printed out, laminated, all cool like that. And on there is guilt free.
Yeah.
You know, but like you're right. It's kind of like, am I ever going to go sugar free? Fuck no. But it's like to say that like you're never going to feel it again, you're never going to have it, is a total lie, which is also setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I'm just sitting here thinking about everything that I tend to feel guilty about is centered around my kids. I don't know about you, but it's mainly just stuff with being like, well, I should have done this and I should have done that. And I should have gotten them out of the house longer that day. Or, you know, like my big struggle this summer, and we've already talked about this a little bit, but my big struggle this summer is like how to keep them entertained, doing things that have nothing to do with technology, you know? And I guilt myself about that a lot, you know, I'm like, they've had too much screen time, and it's just like a never ending battle that I have, which is like, you know, mom guilt is a real thing. Like, it's actually like insane to me how people used to talk about it. And then it's like the minute it's like a disease, you just get it and you have it forever. You know, once you have these kids, you just have it forever. You're constantly going to be thinking, I should have done this, or I could have done that, or this is my fault if something happens to them. You know, it's very, I don't know, it's a very real thing. And I feel like I didn't used to feel like this as a human being in general. I wasn't like a hypersensitive to guilt or constantly feeling guilty about things. It's very much happened and centered around my kids.
So I'm going to push this, and I'm wondering what you think. I think guilt is centered around what you feel responsible for. So you were only really responsible for yourself, right? So I think about all the different ways I have guilt, which again, yes, kids, I'm responsible for them. I have guilt with employees. I feel responsible for them. I have guilt for if I don't spend enough time for my significant other, because I feel responsible for making sure I'm holding up my half of the bargain. I feel guilt for my family and friends. I'm going to group them into one. For maybe not calling them enough, maybe not always picking up their phone call, maybe not always being there when they, you know, when they needed me. I'm going to try, right? So I think I feel guilty in moments where I feel like I take ownership for things, or people count on me. I think that's where like the overall arching guilt thing comes from.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly what it is, because that's exactly what it is. It's guilt. Like everything you said resonated with me. I'm like, okay, I felt guilty with regards to employees. I feel guilty with regards to my friends, and like I haven't seen some of them or spoken to some of them. So like, but I feel like it's just not my day-to-day guilt that consumes me. It's it's just typically more my kids, everything like that I feel on a daily basis guilty for something. But and it's because they're kids too. And the rest of those people that were those groups are adults that we're speaking about. So it's like, I don't know, you still feel guilt. I completely agree with you, but it's less. I feel like, you know, kids can't control literally anything, you know? So if it's like, if an adult sits and watches TV all day, that's their choice. I'm not going to feel guilty about that. But if I have my kids doing that, it's because they don't have another choice. That's, you know what I mean? So it's stuff like that but I totally agree with that. The responsibility factor is, and how you frame that up and lump that up. Like if you're responsible for something, you feel guilty. That's completely true.
Yeah.
Or even talking pets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's true too, actually. So I now bring my dog into the office because I was feeling guilty for leaving our home all the time. I'm like, wait, I can bring her, you know, like, why can't I? Well, I need to go take her for a walk every, you know, hour or so. But it's so funny how we just immediately are like so hard on ourselves. And I know this goes into a broader topic that we're, you know, like what you say to yourself is what you believe. So it's a whole other thing. But it's also like, why don't you place the blame on other people sometimes? Now, I don't want to say not taking ownership for it, but meaning like back to the control issue. So it's, you can sit back and be like, okay, why am I guilty about this? Should I accept responsibility? Did I make a mistake? You know? Or is it maybe someone expecting too much from me? Or am I expecting too much from myself? So I think about, I mean, just having a moment of like a family and friends kind of thing. And I am very close to my family.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I'm their go-to for advice, because back to an episode we did, I'm going to tell it like it is. And they a lot of times need to hear that.
Yeah.
So I think that, so like, I'll probably get more phone calls, more often than not. And it's like, okay, so it goes back to maybe if I set better boundaries, maybe then the guilt would kind of go away, or maybe not. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm just kind of working through this.
Yeah, no, I love that we're both kind of working through this as we're talking about it. So I love, for our listeners, just so you know, we didn't come to this with any groundbreaking advice. It was just more of a relatable episode topic. Yeah, and the other thing, that we were kind of talking about is when you like establish like gender norms or roles within your relationship or whatever, and the dynamic changes, like the financial responsibility or whatever. And it's like, that's where I have this guilt over not being able to do all the things that I used to be able to do when I wasn't working, and vice versa. Like it's just constant guilt. There's just constant things where it's like, it goes back to what you said, like, is somebody's expectations too much of me? And that's where I think it's like we can establish a pattern for ourselves that if we don't stick to that pattern, even though it's something that we put in place or routines or whatever it is, we still feel guilty if we don't do them, even though we're the ones that have established them.
Yes, I am loving this. Okay, so what we've also talked about is I got a new guy. We live together and he's great with the kids and all these wonderful things. Now what I was finding myself is I was thinking about the patterns that I have put myself in different situations, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like stop these patterns. So I really enjoy planning events and adventures and day outs, like all of these things. Okay, oh my god, I love it so much. So like I could do that for a living, like for sure.
Yeah.
And so I realized that the more I plan, the more control I'm essentially taking. Mm-hmm. And definitely, and I'm going to just blame it on the entrepreneur in me, like I am used to doing that. I do it at work. It's something I've always done. Like I'll like be a train if I need to, and I have no problem doing that. But here's the thing. I don't want to control. I want to break the cycle. So I had to say, instead of feeling guilty and not like, like I wanted to plan something the other day, last week, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. I need him to do it. Like, whatever. And then I'm feeling guilty for not having anything to do because he gets used to it, right? He's like, hey, what are we doing today? And I could feel myself getting angry. And I'm like, nope. So I simply went over it because he was like, let's do an escape room. I go, great, go ahead and book it. His response was, well, what website do I use? I go, you can figure it out. Like, you got it. I believe in you. You got this. And then of course I could feel him kind of getting frustrated. I'm like, okay, yeah, here's the website we go on, or actually maybe it was the movies. I don't even know. But I was like, here's what we do. He was like, okay. So he did it. And it was like that moment where I was like, you know what? I have to keep going on this conversation. I have to stop the guilt path. And I have to say, hey, I just want to tell you something. Like, I was trying to have you figure this out, but that's silly. You can't read my mind. I don't want control in our relationship. I love planning things, but I also need you to too. And he was like, yeah, heard you loud and clear. I'm like, cool. And it was so funny because it felt like this like really like big deal internally that I'm struggling with. Yeah. And all I had to do was freaking open my goddamn mouth,
But that's a totally fair point, because it's like you want things done to a certain level or standard that you have of how you would do them. So it kind of is a recipe for disaster, or could be, to where you're saying, like, I understand that you're like, it's a big deal, or I was making it a big deal, but it's not really that big of a deal. But it kind of is if you're a controlling person like we are, because you want somebody to do it right and do it the way that you would do it. So you're like, I'm hoping that you've paid close enough attention and to have the attention to detail to do this to the level that I would do it. Otherwise, I will be frustrated, but I still have decision fatigue, so I don't want to do it right now. Like it's like a vicious cycle.
Bam. Yeah. Bam. I love that you brought up decision fatigue too.
Yeah.
Not today. I do not want to make this decision today, which brings me to, and Kate, our producer, please add this into like the podcast notes and stuff. So I was listening to Maria Forleo. She's like this super powerful woman on like kind of the Tony Robbins, aspect of things. And she did this thing where she said, think of the two things that you struggle with on a regular basis. Okay. Guilt is for sure one of mine. Okay. Mm-hmm. So she goes, now you need to make the decision that you don't do it. And to our point earlier, you're kind of like, if I didn't want to do it, I would have stopped doing it a long time ago. Right. So yeah, I'm like rolling my eyes listening to this. And she goes, all right, let me put it to you in easier terms. If your neighbor comes and knocks on your door and says, hey, let's go murder the neighbor next door, you're going to look at this.
Which neighbor?
Are you? Yeah, right. That's true. Which neighbor? But are you fucking crazy? I don't do murder. I'm not a murderer. Like, I don't do that. And she's like, if you look at it as that serious of a thing, because it does affect your life, which means you are not on your A game when it's happening. You know, you get triggered, you stop, you pause. If you look at it like that extremity, then you start telling it no. You start like kind of wiping it out of your way. Like, not today, guilt, not today. Like, I am not interested. And I will tell you, so I've been doing this now for 8 months, I think. And I do feel significantly better. Have I gotten rid of guilt? Absolutely not. We just talked about that. You don't get rid of it. But I'm able to swat it away a little bit easier because I'm recognizing it, I'm swatting it, I'm processing it. And sometimes it lives on maybe for 5 minutes, but before it was living on like maybe all day. You know, so I mean, for me, it's helped. For sure. And like I said, it's on the vision board. So I'm like very aware that it's something that I do. And it's something that I'm not interested in stopping me. So
that's a good idea. And I've heard you talk about that before. Yeah. You said you don't do, what is it, doubt? There's something else that you said you don't do.
Yeah. Guilt. I don't do doubt. I don't do guilt. Those are the two things.
Yeah. I remember you talking about that. And so when you said 8 months, I felt like it had been longer than that, but maybe not.
Longer?
I don't know.
No, I don't know. Who knows?
But what I do, which is not necessarily healthy, but this is the only, like, it's my way of coping, because I feel like everybody has to figure out whatever their way of coping is, because guilt, I just don't think it just goes away. I don't think that's reality, but I think you have to reframe it in your mind, figure out how you cope with it. Like I said, mine is usually centered around my kids and really technology. That's the big one, especially because it's the summer. Like, that's my theme. I'm trying to work, trying to do all this stuff with the house and then balance, you know, being mom too. And so I have to, it's crazy how this like completely calms me down, but I have to make a plan. So if I, for example, my kids had sat in the house all day today and just played on tablets or, you know, sat in front of a TV while I was working, I would feel immense guilt about that. And so what I would typically tell myself is like, okay, tomorrow they're having no technology and you're going to get them outside or to the rec center or something, moving their bodies for at least 4 hours or 5, you know, like I have to like make a plan. And then I instantly, it instantly calms me down and makes me feel like less of a piece of shit, because I really do guilt myself a lot about a lot of things that have to do with my kids. And so I will feel better if I just come up with a plan for that. You know, I need to do better. Like, thinking you reminded me of this whenever you were saying that, you know, planning dates and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't feel guilt about that. And because it just doesn't happen anymore in my world. But that's a whole other episode where you just like, you gotta keep dating each other. That's like life advice that you know, but doesn't happen. Yeah. But it's, And we're always ones that, and you know what, I feel like it's women.
Well, okay. My stepdad always has to do it for my mom. So I honestly just think it's like whoever has that role. I think there's definitely a role. I don't think that this one is a gender role. And I think back to like past relationships too. Like, it's just who likes it the most.
That's interesting, because I feel like it's everybody. I think there doesn't necessarily have to be a person that likes it. It's kind of like our last podcast episode where you're like, you know, we're saying somebody has to be the bad guy in the parent dynamic. I feel like somebody has to step up and plan or nobody's going to go anywhere. And I don't think it necessarily means you like it, because I can't stand doing that shit. But if I don't do it, it won't get done. So yeah, somebody's got to do it. And then in your relationship, I know from what you told me in the beginning, like he naturally was a planner, like planned dates, things for y'all to go do, and then gets comfortable. Because I feel like that's what happens in a relationship. You get comfortable, and then one person naturally rises to being like, I like to do this stuff, and does it more. So that's a dynamic that if I think back 14 years from when, Aaron and I first met, if I could somehow undo and like, you know, to where I'm not the one that plans this stuff. It's like we both plan things, or you both continue to have the desire to date each other. I think that's a whole nother episode.
It's a complete other episode, and I really like that. I almost wonder if we want to guest for that. But it's something that I told Jeff right in the beginning. I said, I always want to date you. And it's so funny. He's like, talk about words matter. He was like, you mean you never want to get married? I was like, oh, you're adorable. You don't understand this.
Oh my God, that's totally fair. That's a totally fair and normal response to that. But I also, like, I understand if you were in the middle of that conversation, he'd be like, so you don't want to get married? That's exactly what that would sound like. Totally fair.
And I was like, have you never heard that term? He's like, no. But to that point, and not to harp on his marriage, because I mean, that's not exactly fair. However, they never did anything, like literally nothing. And I'm like, have you done this? No. Have you done that? No. So the joke, sorry, Jeff, but the joke is that he's been incarcerated for the last 10 years. Because I'm like, how have you done nothing?
What do you mean done nothing? Like, doesn't go anywhere, or,
So he was married for 10 years before.
Yeah.
And they just didn't do anything with each other at all. They didn't go on vacations. She went. He just worked, basically. It was like, honestly, the weirdest thing, especially because he loves doing all of these things. And it's like, I mean, he even went out dancing with me. He had a ball, So it's like,
yeah.
What do you mean you've never gone out dancing? No, never gone. I'm like, okay. So,
because nobody ever planned it in his relationship.
Nobody ever planned it, and he didn't plan it. So, that okay, yeah, you're right. This is a different episode. I like it. All right, well, let's get back to this guilt shit.
Yeah. Tangent.
I guess let's go back to setting standards with yourself, because you were saying, like, when you plan, it gets easier. Right? Like,
yeah.
So then you have to set up realistic goals and standards for yourself, like really on a regular basis, which also I talk about this a lot, but the growth and success journal, like I have goals for all of like my buckets. Mm-hmm. So it would maybe be going into there and taking it even further of not just saying, hey, I'm going to like be more involved with family and friends, but more of like, hey, I'm going to talk to a family member or a friend once a week. Hey, I'm going to, like almost like carving out full blown, like expectations, KPIs, whatever you want to call them, whatever you relate to. Yeah. But that's kind of an interesting, I mean, I guess I don't like to be tied down to certain things, but it probably would help with the guilt.
I mean, it's weird because it helps me. This is going to sound really weird for everybody listening. It helps me with regards to my kids. But if I were to try to say, okay, every single day from this time to this time, hypothetically, from 10 to 11, I'm going to catch up with friends, or I'm going to text friends or something like that, catch up with family. It would then start to feel like an obligation. And then if there was a day I couldn't do it because I needed to have a meeting or go to a doctor's appointment or something, it would feel like another thing I'm failing at. And I would feel guilt for that. So it's, I don't know why, like I don't have the magic secret sauce or recipe for this. It just helps me to think, okay, well, next time I'm going to do this, or tomorrow I'm going to do this. Like, it's how I talk myself off of the ledge of letting the guilt consume me, because it will. If I just sit here and I'll start to spiral and just think like, okay, well, I should have done this, and then I should have added them at camp if I didn't want them to. It'll just like, it won't end. So I just have to tell myself, basically, the short and sweet of it is like, do better tomorrow. And that makes me feel better.
So I was having a coaching call a couple days ago, and he was going off on this tangent about all these bad days. Like, it was just getting a little dark, right?
Yeah.
So I actually heard something a couple weeks ago that really resonated with me, where we don't have bad days or good days. We have bad hours and good hours, So it's like, you can't, like, let's just say the first 4 hours of when you wake up are just shitty.
Yeah.
And you just decide, well, it's a bad fucking day.
Yeah.
No, it was just a bad 4 hours. I got 20 more hours to make it a good day.
Yeah.
And so like, I think what we're looking for is just the average to be better. It's like, we want the average to be good as opposed to the bad. Like if the good can outweigh the bad, that's what we're looking for, because no one's day is perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's like actually the perfect broke to boss tip. Like and I'd never heard you say that before. That, we don't have bad days, we have bad hours. And it's totally true. Makes me think about Camden during the school year, when he'd wake up sometimes early, we'd have a late night, late baseball, something, and he'd wake up, normal time for school, just emotional. I mean, he's 6, you know how they are whenever he's just emotional and tired. I can always tell when he's tired because he gets really emotional. Like, I just picked him up from camp and he started crying, and he's like, I'm just emotional today and I don't know how to control my emotions yet. And I was like, it's okay, buddy. I was like,
that right there is him controlling his emotions. I love that. You got a smart boy over there.
Well, I'm like, I need self-awareness. I love his self-awareness. Like, he'll tell me exactly what's happening if he knows what's happening. But I was like, it's okay, buddy. You don't have to know how to control him yet. But he would say, he was like, I don't want to have a bad day. That's what he'd say in the morning. So I'm like, okay, well then you can turn it around. Just take the time you need, and then after breakfast, turn it around. So I love that. I love we have bad hours, not bad days, because I'm guilty of, like, if something sets me off in the morning, it just sets the tone for my entire day. And I think that's a great perspective of that. We have bad hours. You can have a bad 2 hours, and then you still have, 22 hours to have a fantastic day. It's definitely all how you frame it up in your mind, for sure.
Yeah. I've been able to play around with kind of all of that lingo just more and more and more but it takes practice. And when I first started doing it, it felt really goddamn hard. Like, how you were just saying, like having a schedule is like, seems overwhelming. Like it did. But now, what do I call overwhelmed? Whelmed. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm constantly kind of playing with words and, about to say I'm constantly playing with myself.
That too.
That too.
Don't tell anybody.
Oh my God. But no, I think this is great, honestly. And I think talking about this, and hopefully the listeners feel the same way, this is like therapeutic. Like no one's alone in this. This is a journey. This is not something that stops. It's a constant, like, pay attention, pivot, move forward. Another just thing, because I know we have, definitely do have a lot of parents that listen. Have you seen Inside Out 2 yet?
No, not yet. But me and the kids were just talking about, we got to go this weekend.
Yeah.
It just came out last weekend, right?
Yeah. We just went last night, just hearing what Camden said about his feelings. He's like, I don't know what it is, but it's not good,
Yeah.
It's honestly like that movie. I just get the chills. It's so well done. And insert like a couple more different feelings as you turn, like anxiety is one of them, and it's so cute, but it is so fucking real. And there was a time, like, I don't know, anxiety was going on some like spiel, and Diego turns to me and goes, it sounds like you. I was like, thank you. like, yeah, I can see that.
That's so funny to me because you're not like an anxious person.
I definitely do get anxiety. I think I want to hear what you think of the movie. Anxiety is portrayed in a few different manners, of which I wouldn't have called anxiety, perhaps. I definitely run hot. So like Jeff's always like, you coming in hot today? Because it's like I have all of this energy, all of these things that I need to do, and I want to do them right now and as fast as I can.
Yeah.
So that's probably some anxious behavior, of just wanting to get shit done. Like he was setting up his showroom for his flooring, and he's like on his phone, and I'm like moving shit all over the place. And I look over, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm just answering a couple texts. I'm like, is that a priority? Like, we got shit to move. And he's like, whoa, hold on there, cowgirl. He's just like, hold on. Like, I'm sorry. I'm like, dude, I don't mess around. Yeah. So that also might, like, in the movie, it kind of it's portrayed as like anxious or anxiety. So I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Some of your previous employees, my previous coworkers, used to describe me exactly that same way, and they called me high strung. And I was like, I didn't know that that's what that meant. I wouldn't necessarily call that high strung, but maybe I don't even know what the actual formal definition of high strung.
I would call you high strung either.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, I don't think that that's high strung. Like, I'm like, whenever I want to get something done, I do get in like get shit done mode, but I don't know.
I think it's intense. It's an intensity.
Intense, maybe. Yeah. But I'm like, it's not, I don't think that's high strung, but I don't even know like what the formal definition. I know what I think high strung to be, but like bouncing off the walls or somebody that's like wound really tight. And I don't know. I'm like, I don't think I'm those. I think I'm my moments for sure. But the intensity, I think that's a better way to describe it. I'll be curious to see the movie. I'll let you know what I think. We're supposed to go this weekend. So
yeah,
assuming we don't have to.
It's good. I don't even know if you've seen the preview, but just visually what anxiety looks like. You're like, spot on.
and anxiety and the embarrassed guy. We were talking about it last night, who they add, and I'm like, oh my God, that one definitely came early with my kids. Like the embarrassed one.
Okay, you know what? We keep talking about having my mom on because she's a riot. So, and I'm sure she's listening to this. I want to invite her on to an episode where we're talking about embarrassment.
Okay.
So my mom decided very early, and I will never forget this. I was in 7th grade, where she decided she was going to embarrass me as much as she can. So to this day, like, good luck trying to embarrass me. I would love to see you try. Like, I definitely turn red in certain instances.
Yeah.
But not as not through embarrassment, through different feelings.
I totally get that about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny. It's like, nope, go ahead.
No, but you want your best shot. My mom did all of this growing up. Give it your best shot. Okay, so we are at time.
Yeah. Well, you already gave
a really long one for us, but
didn't shut up.
No, but it was your broke to boss tip and I loved it. And I feel like it's very relatable and it's definitely a different way to reframe. And I absolutely am going to apply that to my life. I need to start thinking about the day and the hours versus like, well, this day's fucked. You know, it'll literally be like 30 minutes a day. I'm like, it's fucked. It's fucked.
I love it. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Please also, did this help? Right? Like,
yeah,
what else? So many people have guilt. Like, did this help? Practice it. It's not going to help you in 24 hours. This is a journey. You know, we've already discussed that. So, but good luck. You are not alone. We'll see you next time.
Godspeed. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Maverick. Hey, before you jump off, if you have enjoyed today's episode, we would love it if you could take a moment to rate us on your favorite podcast platform because your ratings help other awesome listeners like you find us. It's quick, it's easy, and it really means the world to us. We have links to Apple Podcasts in the description. Just open it up on your phone and scroll down to the bottom and leave an awesome review.